Cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if you see everything. Oh.
Before you start, we're going to do a quick introduction. This is actually the live recording. So welcome. This is the Eloquent JavaScript book club, and I am joined by quite a few of my comrades today. Say hi, ladies.
Hey. Hello. Hello.
Hey. All right. So we are on chapter 6 of Eloquent JavaScript, and it is the secret life of objects. So they do lead a secret life, and we're going to unpack a lot of information about objects, their purpose, their function, no pun intended. And we have someone that is leading up the discussion. Her name is Candace, and she is one of our newest book club members. So we're going to turn this over to Candace. She's going to share her screen, and we're going to get started with chapter 6, The Secret Life of Objects in Eloquent JavaScript. Have at it.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my entire screen. There we go.
Great.
Okay, present to everyone. Okay, cool. Can everybody see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start off with methods and properties. So methods are actions that can be performed on objects, and properties is a value that is stored. So here's an example that I have. We have our object, which is pet, so we're calling it var pet. And this is our property. So our property name is name, and then the value that's being passed through is John Doe. Sometimes you'll hear key value pairs. It's basically the same thing. Name is like the key, and John Doe is like the value of it. So here's just some other properties. For color is brown. And then here in this say hello function, that's the method. So that's the action of the object. When we run say hello, it's going to output to the console log wolf. And right here is how we would call that function. And I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But here's how you would call it. So you would reference the object name, which is pet dot, and then say hello. And if I was to run that, you would get wolf right here. This dot that you see, they call it a dot notation, and that's just a way for objects to access properties. So if we wanted to access something instead, like for example, if we wanted to access age, that all we have to do is reference the name of the object and then the property name, run that, and we'll get 5. So that's pretty much methods and properties in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No? Okay. I'm going to keep going. And then down here, it says object.method, and if you have an argument to pass through, again, when you're calling
Candace, one thing, click hide on your Google Hangout pop-up. You have a modal that's blocking the bottom of your slideshow.
Oh,
so just click hide, and then we can actually see the bottom of your screen.
Cool, thank you. Awesome. Yeah, so again, this is just kind of like a reminder of how to call a method, object.method, and here's if you're passing through any arguments. Okay, this is the ES6 version. So this is kind of what they had in the chapter. So we have our object here, let rabbit equals empty object. And then we're creating a property here. So we're doing rabbit.speak equals our parameter. And this is a function. And this is just how they do functions in ES6. So it's the same thing as if I was to do something like that, except in ES6, they have it like that. They're just using the arrow. And when we run our method, then it's going to output to the console log, the rabbit says, and then here's our parameter. And here's how, again, we're going to call it. So we're going to reference our object dot our method, and we're passing our argument the word hello. So when I play this, you'll see, or run the function, you'll see rabbit says hello. And another thing that I wanted to point out, and the chapter didn't really mention this a lot, but do you see this line right here in console log? This is called a temperate literal. So it's basically a new way to create a string, but you can do so much more with it. So here we have our object here, rabbit. We're calling our method rabbit.speak. We're passing through here. And what's happening is you can, again, pass parameters, which is what we're doing here. You can do string substitutions. You could do multi-line strings, and you can even do math. And what I'm going to do is just demonstrate that for you so you see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm going to uncomment this and uncomment that. So let's say we have new variables, let f names for first name equals 5. We're just changing the values of what we're just doing some like random values. So we have let f name equals 5, then let l name equals 3. And if we wanted to put them together, oops, let's see, maybe missing a semicolon. What's happening? Okay, there we go. Then we would have, the result is 5, 3. And we can put it on different lines like so. We can also do math as well. So if I wanted to like add these two together and you have to get rid of that $. Then we would have the result is, and we can get rid of this. We have the result is 8. So that's just some of the cool things that you can do with it. And again, when you're doing a template literal, you're using backticks. So I'm just going to write it from scratch. So you see, you have backticks, and then you can put the result is, and then add in your variables in brackets. And then you'll be able to do the math right there. And if you want to read more, and I can include this in the chat, but Google has a great blog post that deep dives into this and gives more great examples. So I can drop that in the Google chat if you guys just want to read more and learn more about it.
Please do. That would be helpful.
Before I continue, was that confusing for anybody? Like, does anybody have any questions?
No, I can't remember which chapter. Well, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I can't remember which chapter it was where it introduced template literals. At least I think it did. And
Okay.
that was my first time seeing it. I could be mistaken. I could have read it somewhere else, but it was just in recent memory. And I had done a couple of examples using template literals as opposed to using regular variable names. And it was just because we're in my boot camp, we're not at ES6 we're still using pre-2015 I know, right? But we are going to switch to ES6, but I guess they had to get us to a certain point. We're still using var, we're not using const and let, we're not using template literals, and there's a couple of things that are different in ES6 versus pre-2015, and this is definitely one of them. So it was just in recent memory that I was just being introduced to this, and this was actually a really good example of knowing how to do it the old way and then knowing how to do it the new way was actually very helpful to see. So thank you for going over that example. It made it it made it easier, I guess. And we did arrow functions, I think, back in chapter 1 or 2. And I still haven't wrapped my head around those. Like, we're still not doing arrow functions in class yet. So every time I see them, I go, what is it doing? so it tickles me. It's like, I just want to keep seeing it. I just want to, see people use it. And at some point, I will be using arrow functions as well. So it's very nice to see. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. And again, if you guys have any questions, if you're like, wait, say that again, because I didn't get that, please stop me and I could totally go over whatever you guys want to go over. So prototypes. So what is a prototype? A prototype is an object used as a fallback source for properties. When an object has a property that doesn't exist, its prototype will be searched next. So in other words, if someone's calling my object with a property that doesn't exist, go look in the other object and use that as a backup or prototype. And I'm going to show an example. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to show an example of exactly what that looks like. So the book has, not the book, well, I guess the book, but the chapter has a really good example of this. So we have our object right here, which is let proto rabbit. And here we have our method, which is speak, and we're passing through a parameter, which is line. And then when speak gets executed, it's going to output to the console log our template literal. So it's going to say this type rabbit says line. I think. Okay, right. And so when we are calling it now, we're going to create a new object. So killer rabbit is our new object, and we're passing through proto rabbit. So killer rabbit is going to adopt basically the speak function because we're passing that through. And we're also setting the type as well. So we're setting killer right type equals killer, which is this right here is our type, killer. And then we're also passing through an argument for line, and we're passing through screen. So when we run this code, it will say the killer rabbit says screen. And I kind of want to open up console and just show you what's happening under the hood. So I'm gonna decrease the size of this a little bit and lower this down because I want to copy all of this into console. Okay. Okay, so when we look up killer rabbit, we see here's our type. So this is our this.type, which is referencing the function this.type, and it's pulling in killer. So here's our type right here. And when we pull down our prototype right here, this is where the speak function is living. So that's pretty much where that goes, and that's where that lives. So this is just to show you like what's actually going on under the hood. Being able to pass through proto rabbit allows us not to have to do this whole thing all over again for killer rabbit. It allows us to write less code essentially, and it basically just takes that method and it saves it right in the prototype.
I have a question, Nayana. Is prototypes, because I've done Java and this sounds eerily like a constructor. Are they similar to some degree?
It is it's the same thing.
Okay.
When you create the object, Candace created a new she used a constructor to build it.
Right.
That was what the let proto rabbit was. And then she referenced the object. Everything is the same as in Java. Even the this dot is just inheritance, but it's the same.
Okay, thank you.
And then my question, Candace, is object.create. Is that the function create? Is that a built-in function for the JavaScript library?
I think it's built in.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's, yeah, I think it's built in. I can do more research and find it out 1,000%, but I think it's built in with JavaScript. And, you know, like you said, it's just basically creating an object, and you're just going to pass through the methods that are under, that are within the proto-rabbit object. Cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions? No? Okay. Cool. So then I'm going to move on to classes. So what is a class? A class is a function, and it defines the properties and methods of the object. And in JavaScript, classes are used as constructors. So I noticed that you guys just mentioned constructor. And in JavaScript, especially in relation to classes, they're used in a specific way. But I'm going to show an example and go over all of that. But again, in JavaScript, classes are used as constructor functions with a prototype property. So here's an example of a class in JavaScript. So here we have our class Rabbit, and this is the constructor. So the constructor, in this case, is gathering all of the properties and, but yeah, it's gathering all of the properties for our class Rabbit. And in order, and when you're using class, you must use constructor, like they both go hand in hand. So in this case, you have constructor, and you're passing through a parameter, which is type. So you have this dot type equals type, and then here you have your method speak, and it's passing through line. And so when speak gets executed, it's going to output to the console log, you know, this dot type rabbit says line. So when you run the code, oops, sorry, I think there's a little mistake in what I have here. Yeah, that's not what I want yet. Here we go. There we go. So when you're going to run the speak function, you're going to, wait a minute. Rabbit. Right, because that's not defined. So it should just be rabbit. So, rabbit.speak. Oh, that's what I'm missing. So let me go back. Sorry about that. There we go.
That's live coding for you.
Ah! It says hello, and where is small coming from? Because I want to comment that up next. This type rabbit says, the killer rabbit says hello. Right. Killer rabbit says hello. So where is small coming from? Let me see. I'm going to see if I can find it. There it is. There you go, you little sneak. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to comment that out. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So, cool. All right. So again, we're going to create a new object, and we're calling that killer rabbit. We're passing through killer, and we're going to go killer rabbit.speak and passing through hello. And that's essentially is how a class works in JavaScript. And I actually have another example that kind of demonstrates this as well. Whoop. Okay. I'm going to comment all that out. And then here's another example that I have. Okay. Cool. So in this one, again, it's another class, and we're calling that robot. And we have our constructor, which is our function that's going to take in our properties, and we're passing through a parameter name, and we're setting our parameter this.name equals name. And then here's our method, which is greet. It's passing through a parameter line, and when this function gets run, it's going to return this.name says whatever line you want it to be. And so here, similar to the last example, we're going to create a new object. We're calling that Robert1, and we're referencing our robot not Robert, robot one, and we're referencing our robot class, and we're passing for name Vargas, and we're going to also run our greet function, and we're passing through hello. So when we run this code, whoop, what's going on at 19? Class Robert, unexpected token. I'm missing. Yep, that's ending there. Let Robert, robot one equals hello. Instructor is name. Don't think that will do anything. Let's see, what am I missing? I don't think it put it. Class robot, instructor name. This equals name. That's right. New robot equals Vargas. Robot.greet equals hello. So there's something going wrong with class 19. Let me see what's going on there. So it's similar to Rabbit. Not sure why it's doing that.
I don't see it either. Whatever.
That's weird. Yeah.
It looks just like Rabbit.
It does.
Does anybody else see what could be an errant piece of punctuation or something? I don't see it.
Can we move the code closer together so that we can see it? I don't know if it's my screen.
Because you can only see about 12 lines at a time, which is probably just a function of the console that she's using.
But I can actually open it and make it bigger so we can see.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks a lot to me. You know what? Name on line 20 is black as opposed to on line 3. When you're creating the Rabbit class, it's of a different color. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Like, has it been defined in the... Well, I'm not sure.
I think what might be happening is, yeah.
Oh, of course. Okay. Alrighty. I forgot to comment out the top part. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So, right. Okay. So, where did I leave off at? Right. So we're initializing a new object, and we're passing through a parameter, which is the robot's name, Vargas, and then we're doing robot1.greet equals hello. And that's pretty much that in a nutshell. I know that was kind of a little bit confusing. Does anybody have any questions or just needs me to clarify anything?
No, it was, I guess I don't have a question. I guess after having seen Rabbit work, I get how you're creating a new rabbit in reference, like how you're creating a new robot. This was very similar to the last one. So you're using the new keyword to create a new instance, and you're passing through that parameter. And once you call that newly created robot1 instance and use the greet, I'm assuming greet is a method, and you're passing in hello, so it spits out whatever was in that method.
Awesome. It's the same as the Java, but my question for you is, I would like to understand what went wrong, so we know what happened, but why didn't it work? When, like, all the troubleshooting we just did.
Totally. So the last one was my fault. So I put in code that I commented here because I didn't want to forget to do certain things, and I didn't want to forget to show you certain things. I didn't want to have like 50 mini consoles like in my slide. So I commented out some code. And when you're commenting code and uncommenting it, sometimes you forget pieces, and you end up not commenting the code that you meant to comment out, and then that gets run and it kind of messes up everything. So that's what happened. Like up here, I had this whole thing commented out, except for this. And if I play it again, that's where the error came from. And then when I just commented out, everything works. So that's what happened. That was a fault on my end. Does anyone have any more questions? No? Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing is overriding derived properties. And sorry, I see a little mistake here that I want to edit out real quick. I think I have an extra. Yes, so this is going to bother me. I think that I have to get rid of that. Okay, there we go. We're going to play. Yep. Oops. Start presentation. Cool. Okay. So, so overriding derived properties. If there is a property with the same name on an object, the property will no longer affect the object. So, kind of going back to our classic rabbit example. Oops, sorry. Here we have right, so here this is basically our rabbit example that we had before, and I'm just going to delete all of this to make it a little bit easier. There we go. So here, we're going to assign a prototype. So we're going to assign it rabbit.prototype.teach, so that's our property, and we're going to give it a value of small. I'm going to comment this out too. And we're going to console log killerrabbit.teach. So when we run the code, we'll get small. So if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to add another property, right, to kill a rabbit, or to our rabbit object in general, you can do so. Right here, we can just say kill a rabbit dot teeth equals long, sharp, and bloody, and we'll console log it. We'll get that. And kind of just to show you what's going on under the hood, and I'm going to add this piece of code in there as well. So I have to add the whole code. Okay. So I think I can just add. There we go. And I'm going to, there we go. Cool. So here we have our killer rabbit object, right? And it's taking in the type from rabbit, and it's giving it the killer property, and then it's assigning the new value for teeth, long, sharp, and bloody. And then if we go to prototype, what we had before, teeth small, is being added here. So what's happening is, if you have, let me lower this down a bit. What's happening is, if you have a property and you're giving it a value and you want to assign it a new value, you can do so. But then what JavaScript will do is we'll take that original value and we'll kind of push it to the prototype. So it'll serve as a backdrop. It'll save it right then and there. And to kind of demonstrate this again, I'm going to lower this down. And let's say we wanted to maybe move long, sharp, and bloody to small. And let's say our new value for teeth is it's missing, right? The rabbit don't got no teeth, it's missing. Sorry. And we run that, we'll see now missing is our new value. And if we look under the hood, I'm just going to copy this into the console so it has like the updated code. and then you look up our killer rabbit, you'll see here, now it's taken in the newest value, which is missing, and it pushed long, sharp, and bloody into the prototype, and it's saving that as, again, as a backdrop. So does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. So originally the prototype was small teeth. So the prototype is exactly what it sounds like. It is the prototype for all instances that come off of Rabbit. So they're building off of Rabbit. So at the very basic, their teeth are small. Now you switched it. So you changed it in the prototype, and instead of it being small, you switched it, and then Killer Rabbit, it was just the inverse, where instead of digging down into Killer Rabbit when its teeth was long, sharp, and bloody, and you saw small, because you changed the prototype, it became the backdrop, and Killer Rabbit's teeth are listed as missing. So I guess the takeaway is once you build the prototype, you can never really overwrite it, but you can kind of just push it down a little bit where another property can kind of come to the forefront and be one of the defining properties. So if you took teeth away, I'm going to assume, if you took missing away, I'm going to assume that Killer Rabbit's teeth are going to be long, sharp, and bloody in this example.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly it. It's, prototype, it's empty by default, but you can assign it properties. And again, if you want to kind of override a property that you just assigned to your object, then it'll take the oldest one, it'll move it here, and then the most recent one will be attached to the object.
Okay.
And another thing that I wanted to point out, and this is like a little confusing, but each object has a prototype. So it's very possible for your prototype to have a prototype, and for that prototype to have a prototype. And that's actually called a prototype tree. I can leave some links if you want to go more into it. I didn't go heavy here, just with all of the materials in chapter 6, but I wanted to point that out just in case if you saw this here and you're like, why am I seeing proto twice? It's because your prototype can have a prototype and so forth and so forth. So I just wanted to point that out briefly.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just make sure if that was the actual. Sure, we can do maps next. So the next one is maps. And I think you guys used the maps in a previous chapter, but here it's defined and used a little bit differently. So how do maps work? So maps associate values with other values. It allows you to store key value pairs. So in this example, you have let ages, right? And you're initializing a new map and you're setting your key value pairs. So you have Boris, which is the name, and you're going to give it age of 39. Luang, which I might have totally butchered the pronunciation of that, but that's okay. You're giving her an age of 22. And then Julia, and you're going to give an age to 63. So these are just setting the value pairs. And when you run the code, it'll console log Julia is, and it's going to get that pair. So it's going to get whatever pair or whatever value Julia has, and it's going to execute that. So I'm going to comment out these two, just so you can see that alone in action. So when I run that, it's going to say, Julia is 62. And then in the next one, we're going to check if it has it. So we're going to check, do we know Jack's age? Does he has it? So if I run that, it's going to say false. So I have a question. Do you know why Jack is saying false?
Because he doesn't exist in the map. So you did
exactly.
You did a has on a key called Jack, and has, I guess, is like a query of the map, and it looks to see if Jack exists as a key, and it'll return false if it doesn't and true if it does.
Right. There
Okay.
you go.
I'm guessing.
Yes. No, but that's good. That's exactly it. Because simply we didn't set Jack to anything, it's going to come by false. In other words, JavaScript is like, I don't know him. And then just return false. And then here we're going to check if it's two strings. So we run this, and again, it's going to return false because it's saying, hey, no, their ages, no, it doesn't have a string here. These are the value is a number, right? So that's why it's going to come across false.
Mm-hmm.
So now the next thing that we're going to move into is polymorphism. Polymorphism is the ability of multiple objects to implement the same functionality. So here in this example, we're setting a prototype to rabbit, and we're setting it to string. We wanted to make sure everything is readable as a string. And then here's our function. So again, this arrow just literally means function. And when we run it, it's going to return this.type rabbit. And then here is our type. So when we run this code, it's going to output to the console log black rabbit. So that's basically kind of polymorphism in a nutshell. Again, if you guys want more on it, I could totally go back and do more on this after the fall and maybe even do a review. But that's pretty much kind of it in a nutshell. You're able to do, be able to take multiple objects and you're able to implement the same functionality. And then the next one we have here is symbols. So symbols are values created with the symbol function. And that's right here. This is the symbol function. And for example, property names can also be symbols and not just trees. So when we're looking at our property names in our object, and let's say our property name was name and the value was Sarah, well, with symbols, name can be just that. It could be any symbol you want. It doesn't always have to be a string. And symbols are treated as a unique pair that are alike. So you can use them to add them for hidden properties. So let's say you're working on something and you're dealing with some type of data that's a little bit secret, or you wanted to hide it a little bit. You can use symbols to do so. Symbols does not hide your properties 100% because there is a way to find that out. But there are ways to have completely hidden properties where if you wanted to console log the property, if you wanted to output the property to the console log, it would just give you an error message, like you couldn't see it. And I could drop some more resources in there as well if you guys are interested in digging more into that. But yeah, this is pretty much what symbols are in a nutshell. And just to take a look at the example, so here we have our variable, which is let string simple, and it equals, we're initializing our symbol, we're initializing the symbol right here. And then we have let my object. So this is another object, and we have number, and we're giving it a value of 1. And we're saying string symbol, we're equaling that to hello world. So when we shoot it out to the console log, and I'm gonna get out, it's gonna give you hello world. So it's literally just echoing out whatever your symbol is. So again, you're referencing your object that it's attached to. You're referencing your symbol, which is string symbol, and then that's going to output hello world. So and then just to kind of,
one question. So I see here, I hear feedback. Hold on. Maybe that's better. Okay. My question is, I see you're using bracket notation versus using dot notation, and I wonder if that's a function of using a symbol, because it's not starting with a number, doesn't have spaces in it. It's not one of those things where, of course, it would be bracket versus dot notation. So is that just a function of it being a variable that you're referencing it like you are, one in the object and two in the console log? Like, is that a function of symbols? Because I haven't seen symbols before, so I don't know if this is specific to them.
That's a really good question. And this chapter was actually like my very first exposure to symbols as well. So I'm not sure if it's one of those things where it's like that, it just comes with the symbol. What I can do is try it out and see what happens. So let's say if I get rid of the bracket notation and run it, it would give an error message. So then that means that it is something that comes with symbols, is that you're using the bracket notation as a way of saying, hey, this is a symbol, right? It's not just a regular property name. This is a symbol here. And when we call this string symbol, we want it to echo out hello world. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, that answered the question. You showed me right there that if you took those brackets out, it's not going to work.
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. When I read this chapter, I was like, ooh, wow. So now we can get cryptic? Like, now we can add symbols and stuff? Did not know that. And so I saw this example and I understood it enough to show it. So that's why I have it in my slide.
Good.
But yeah, and I'm assuming that's what's needed. And what I can do is, I'm keeping all of your questions in mind, because if I see any resources where they go into like the nitty gritty, I'm definitely going to drop them in the Slack or email you guys so that you guys can do further reading. Because I know researching for this presentation, because to be honest, like the chapter 6 was very confusing, the way that it's written. So I had to go to different resources to understand what they're talking about.
Now you know what the rest of us go through when we read this book.
Totally. I was just like, English, tell me in plain English. But it's cool because I saw so many resources. So everything that I use that's going to help me, I'm going to drop that down in the chat or email you guys, because it's helpful. And I think it's good to not just stick to one source, but it's good to hear the same information from different sources, because person A may have explained it well, but maybe it's just something about person B that makes it click. And then it's like, oh, now I get it. So I'm definitely going to do that after the presentation. Cool. Does anybody have any more questions on what a symbol is, or, if they have any questions regarding this example? No? Okay. Okay, so now we have the iterator interface. So the iterator is an object, right? Everything is basically an object. So the iterator is an object that provides a next method, which returns the next item in the sequence. And an iterator is considered to be finished or terminated when the next calls returns an object with a done property and it's set to true. So just to kind of show you, and I'm going to open it and repel it so we can see it on a little bit bigger thing. But so we have here our variable, and it says, okay, iterator, right? So we're saying, our iterator is going to be okay, right? It's going to have these two letters. And here's the brackets again, and we're going to pass through simple.iterator. So we're going to, when we run this to the console log, and I'm going to comment these out so you can see it one by one, because I think it's a little bit easier. Right, so when we push it out to the console log, we have our value, we have our O, which is the O right here, and then we have done, which is false, because it's like, nah, we're not done, and so we get to continue to keep going. So when we uncomment this and we run it again, and again, this is the next method. When we run it again, it's going to kick out the value K. And of course, it's going to return false because it's not false, right? There's a value here. But when we do it a third time and we run it, it's going to say true because it's simply undefined. And the same thing can work if we decided to put love, right? Love. So if we were to run this, and I would actually have to do it again to get the E in. I can get rid of that. That's not done. So when we run that, same thing. It's going to check. It's going to say, okay, we got the L, boom. Okay, we run this again, we have the O, boom. We're going to do this again, we have the B, boom. We do this again, we have the E, boom, it's right there. And when we do this once more, it's going to say true because it's undefined, right? There's no more letters in this string left. So that's just an example of the Iterator interface. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Does it only work on strings? Like, I guess the book only used strings as an example, but I'm wondering if it works on other structures, like maybe an array. Would it iterate over an array that was there? I mean, I know you probably may have, because it wasn't in the book. I was just curious if this is something that does more than just this. Like, does it work on other data types?
That's a really, really good question. And if you don't mind, I'm going to research that right now. Does Iterator
Go for it.
work on other data types, right? Is that what you said?
Data types, yep.
Yeah, that's great. We gonna learn today. We gonna find out. Protocols. MDN is iffy. Sometimes it's helpful, but sometimes it's not. So our next we have that. Yes, we can. Look.
Oh, sweet. So you can use arrays to iterate. So that's interesting. That you okay. All right, that's good to know. MDN is normally, it's very verbose, and I find that, like, I'll read and look at examples and say, I still don't know what this does.
Right, exactly. And then sometimes I have to kick it to YouTube and be like, could somebody just show me?
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's good for some things, but once you can actually read through, one of these articles and still have no idea what's going on. So like you said, you might have to always go to an outside source that explains it better. And then once you have that click moment, then some of the stuff that you may have read on MDN makes a little bit more sense, because there was just something in between you and understanding that was in the way. But sometimes using another resource is helpful.
Right.
Cool.
And then let's see. Oh, and I also had that was the example I just showed you. Okay, yeah. So now here we have inheritance. And I think this was mentioned before. I think, Noema, I think you basically called it out from the very beginning and mentioned this before. So it's basically when the new child object inherits from the parent object. That's basically essentially what it is. And just to kind of give you another example of inheritance, and this is a little involved, but I'm going to walk through and show you what's happening. So we have our function and we have hero, and we're passing through our parameters. Another quick thing that I wanted to put out there, because this kind of confused me, especially when learning JavaScript. A lot of times I kept hearing parameter and arguments, and I think a lot of people tend to use those like back and forth, but they're actually different things. So just to kind of, and you guys probably already know this, but I just want to just throw this out there real quick. A parameter is used when you're defining your function, right? So this is a parameter. And when you call your function, right? So if I'm putting in Sarah, right? That's for name. This is an argument. So again, parameters, what you're passing through when you're defining your function, is basically a placeholder for the argument. And here, when you're calling your function and you're passing in what the name is, that's your argument. So I just wanted to point that out there real quick, because that got me for the longest. But anyway, So we have our function hero, and it's passing through parameters name and level, and it's a constructor function. So again, we're saying this dot name equals name, and this dot level equals level. And the reason why we're using this is so that it's whatever's specific to the constructor function, right? Because we're passing in parameters, and it's a way for JavaScript to kind of say, no, this isn't just a regular parameter. This is specific to this function. So we have to put this in front of it just to kind of have that difference. And there's a better example that I have of that. And it's this one in the robot class. So here we have our constructor function, and we just named it constructor, and this is it, right? So this is referring to what's ever in here, what's ever in our constructor function, right? And it's separate from our regular parameter, which is line, that we're passing through greet. So I just wanted, again, to clarify that. It's just a way to kind of call out parameters and our constructor functions and initialize them, if you will. Okay, so then we have another function called warrior. Same thing, except we're passing an extra parameter, and we're saying this dot weapon equals weapon. Notice how we're not repeating this. Notice how we're not repeating that. We're just simply adding on to it. So here we have warrior prototype. So we're linking our prototypes, and we're going to create a new object, and we're passing through everything that's in hero. So we're passing that through. And then we're running our function here. So we have hero.prototype.greet equals function. So when we run this, this dot name says hello. And then here in our warrior, we're calling this function attack. And we says this dot name attacks with this weapon. So when we are so here we're going to initialize our character. So here we have hero1, and we can do the same thing for warrior. So let's just call it warrior1. Okay. We're going to do new warrior, and I guess we're going to name her Haley. And let's see. And she attacks with an axe. Or do I just put, oops, sorry. Okay. So when we call warrior1, let's see if this runs. Haley is with undefined. So I'm wondering if I don't put those in quotes. Okay, let me go back. Just so I can see what happened. Okay.
Are you missing a parameter? Because up top, I thought it was 3 parameters for the new warrior. Right, oh no, hero. Yeah, new warrior has 3 parameters. 1, 2.
And Haley only had.
Well,
you don't have to do, or is that, am I wrong in saying that?
Right, you're right. It does. So it has name, level, and weapon. And the only one that we're initializing is weapon. And if I did, I think I see what happened. I'm gonna take a stab and see if I can fix this. There we go. Let me do Allie. And then we run this. Okay. Oh, and then we have to change this to warrior1. Then attack. There we go. Why does it say undefined? Oh, is it because of this? Let's see. Interesting. So we have hero.call this name this dot weapon equals weapon.
Does Haley need a level? Because if she's running off of the warrior,
That's a good point. Let's see. That's a very good point. That could be it too. Yep, that's what it was. So I was missing a level. Oh, so that's good to know. Okay, so if you have any parameters and you're missing any of the arguments, it will throw an error.
Okay.
That's really good to know. That's good to know. Cool. Thank you for that.
Yep.
So, but this is basically just an example of inheritance where you're passing through parameters from one function, which is what you're doing with warrior. And again, we only initialize this because this is not, weapon is not included in hero, but it is in warrior. But you're just passing things through. And so when you're calling your functions, it's passing through all that data. And what's nice is that you don't have to do this for like warrior. And add more code. So that's basically kind of an example of inheritance. And what's happening here is you're initializing your individual characters. So you have your const, which is hero 1, and that should be hero, not warrior. All right. So you're saying, hey, create this new object. We're going to grab into our hero function, and we're going to pass through our parameters, the join, and he's on the first level, right? And then for our warrior function, we have her passing through Hallie, which is the name. She's on level 2, and she is attacking you with an axe. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of inheritance. And I know there was a little hiccup there with trying to figure out why I was getting that error message. But does this make sense? Does anybody have any questions?
No, that was actually, it's helpful to see, and the troubleshooting that goes along with it, it kind of makes you fix your eyes toward, what should and shouldn't be happening. So live coding can also be very helpful when mistakes pop up because, you put on your sleuth hat and you have to figure stuff out. So that makes sense. So we're coming up on an hour, and I know which is fine because this chapter was very, very dense, and it makes sense that there was a lot of material that needed to be covered. So I don't want to quench the spirit because we are going to revisit, and we're going to have to because there's a lot of information that we didn't get to, quite a prototype list objects and a few more at the end. So we're going to take a summer hiatus. So if you haven't read up to chapter 6, I know this says 2nd edition. We're reading currently the 3rd edition, which is ES6. So if you want to read along with us, by all means, you got the summer. You can catch up to chapter 6, and we're going to come back in September. Candace is going to revisit 6 with a quick overview, and then go into depth on there were just a couple more section topics that she didn't cover, which is fine, but we don't want to go too long because this is a really meaty chapter, and so is the chapter after it. So it's okay that we break these up. We've done it in the past. It makes sense for a lot of these chapters to be broken up. So you did a really good job. You did a really good job, Candace, because as I was reading this stuff, and I was like, I have no idea what they're talking about. It was good to see it. It was good to see it and hear it explained and see the examples. So that was really helpful. Does anybody else have any comments about this monstrous chapter 6 and, the secret life of objects? It sounds like a book title.
Yeah, this was amazing. Like, I was so curious about how creating objects and the whole sort of deal with inheritance and things like that worked in JavaScript. And so you broke it down like so beautifully, and the examples were so helpful. So I'm excited to revisit it again. This was awesome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that because I was so nervous. And I just wanted to make sure that I broke it down clear for you guys because I know what it's like to when you have somebody teaching and they're just going way over your head. And I've been in so many like conferences and trainings where it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So when I'm trying to teach it, I always have that in mind. Like, do you think they can understand what you're saying? And that's why even during this presentation, I asked, am I making sense? You know, do I need to go back? You know, does this make sense? Because I want to make sure that you guys are understanding everything.
Well, thank you very much for that. This wraps up the first 95% of chapter 6 of Eloquent JavaScript. We only have a little bit more to go. So we're definitely going to post this video along. Candace is going to send all of the outside resources. You're definitely going to have to share your slide deck. And you're definitely, you know, we really want to be able to look at this. So if you got links, you know, if you have links, if you're going to keep your repos up, that would be awesome. If you can't, that's fine. But definitely share your slide deck. We're going to be putting this out on YouTube. And we're going to see you guys after the summer. So again, we're going to do a quick goodbye with everybody. This was chapter 6 of Eloquent JavaScript. Does everybody want to say bye?
Bye.
All right, you guys. All right, don't hang up, but everybody else, later.